All right, and welcome to another day in paradise. We are back once again, this time at home with the computer. Unlike with the other ones, where those are mostly car vlogs, like I said, I'll kind of bounce between as the need arises, and a lot of stuff happened over the last day or so that I feel like this is one of those use Reddit's news section as a avenue to bring up new topics to discuss about what actually occurred. Um, the main pressing news of the last few days has been the absolute shit show that is the Trump tariffs, the backlashes to the tariffs, and his speech that he gave in front of Congress. Yeah, to give the quick synopsis before we get into using these different posts as, a jumping off point. Yeah, Trump announces his tariffs again on a bunch of different places. The main two of note is Canada and Mexico at the 25%. He pussied out of the first attempt because he knew it wasn't going to work well, and he decided, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to sabotage the country. These tariffs are so unambiguously harmful to the United States that we need to begin to operate under the assumption that Donald Trump and his ilk are intentionally sabotaging the economy. We must work with that assumption. There is no reasonable way that you could perceive these actions from any economic perspective outside of him trying to either A, make the United States an autarky where everything is done within the country in which everything can be controlled by the government, or he is just a complete Russian asset who's sabotaging the economy on purpose just to make the US weaker on the international stage so Russia can step in, or a little bit of both. I'm leaning more towards a little bit of both, but Donald Trump doesn't have too much time left in his life, and it's really burning a lot of goodwill, so it very much comes off as he's just burning down the ship before he leaves. Yeah, both Canada and Mexico have responded to the applied tariffs and are pretty dramatically upheaving their economies just to say fuck you to the United States back. Good on them. Uh, Donald Trump is so bad where I have to start like congratulating Justin Trudeau, one of the most milk toast liberals in history. Even like a lot of left-leaning people in Canada find him either outright bad, annoying, and or not even going remotely far enough to be useful. And now Justin Trudeau is like spinning this into like this like big Canadian nationalist moment because he's able to, like say he's responded tough to Donald Trump. All sorts of things are going to go up in price. Americans don't really seem to grasp that the two top trading partners for the United States is Canada and Mexico. This is going to fuck us bad, specifically with foods, energy. We get a lot of electricity and petrol from Canada. Both of those are going to now have that massive tariff as well. Entire swaths of the Canadian population are basically boycotting all American goods. So, yeah, we may be selling things to them, but like now that has the tariff that they're applying also, and nobody wants to buy them out of principle. Good on the Canadian people. I mean, when they actually care about something, they have the courage to actually stand up for something. They said that they were going to boycott American goods, and you can take a look around at Canadian grocery stores. That is what's happening. They're pulling all of the items from the shelves. People are leaving them in favor of products from literally anywhere else on Earth out of spite. We have entered into spite-based politics, and I am here for it. Good on you guys. We're still waiting to hear on the specific response from Mexico, but it looks like it's going to be much of the same. So yeah, he is just full-blown sabotaging the economy. He made a bunch of tweets back in the day rambling about how if a president tanks the stock market this much in 2 days, he should be impeached, and he's already pushing those numbers. He has the worst approval ratings of any president this early into their term. How could you perceive this in any way other than, like, burning the bridge down after you've crossed it? We're cooked. It's fucked. Yeah, there's just... It's really not looking good in that regard. And so then, yesterday, he goes to the, give a speech in front of Congress, in which he's lying every 30 seconds, bloviating and posturing. Every single speech Donald Trump gives is getting increasingly incoherent. The guy is old and senile. We need to stop pretending that that isn't the case. Anybody who complained about Joe Biden's age are just complete hypocrites if they think Donald Trump is acceptable. Yeah, sure, Sleepy Joe was a sleepy dementia patient. Donald Trump is an angry dementia patient. I'd rather have a guy who can't make it through a meeting than a guy who is like screaming and threatening to have people jailed and killed and fighting dissidents. Like, what are we doing here? How do we let this country be run by geriatrics? This is ridiculous. And so yeah, there wasn't as much pushback as I was hoping during the actual event. There were a couple people who held up signs, and then let me see what his name was. I saw him listed down here. A particular Congress member actually basically causes Democratic Representative Al Green removed after disrupting Trump's speech. So he basically was yelling about how Trump is killing Medicaid and he doesn't have the right to do this. All of these Republicans are acting like they have a quote-unquote mandate being the idea that their decisions are based on the people. You don't have a mandate. You just narrowly won the election, and won in quotes. You know, we're not even getting into the fact of like all of the extreme discrepancies, all of the really weird behavior, all of the millions of people who had their votes thrown away conveniently right before the accounts were happening. All of the different people, primarily people of color, who Republicans went to get them stripped from the voter pool on purpose. Yeah, so saying you won is already a stretch. Saying you won with a mandate is crazy. You guys did not even get the majority. What are we talking about here? He does not have a mandate to universally just terminate all of these things that were done by Congress, things he does not have the authority to do. And again, they went on about like, oh, we're not going to cut Medicaid, we're not going to cut retirement, we're not going to cut Social Security, we're not going to do all this or that. And then literally like a month in, they're doing all of this. They cut like, what was it, like 800? Well, I thought it was like a crazy number. Like, let's see, Donald Trump I can't type for shit. Medicaid cuts. It was a ridiculous number. Of course, Google is not being very useful. I want the number, guys. That's another one of those topics that I want to rant about in the near future. Google is actively sabotaging information seeking. Like, come on. What are we doing? Everybody knows that your website has gotten worse. Everybody knows that you can't find shit on Google anymore. And if you want anything found about niche hobbies, you got to type Reddit afterward. Yeah, I was correct. I was like, is it 880 million or billion? The answer is billion. Yeah, they're cutting $880 billion for Medicaid. Looking good. They totally have the mandate of the people to do this. All of their geriatric voters who are all going to suffer from this. I never thought the leopards would eat my face after voting for the leopards eating people's faces party. So, yeah, Donald Trump is talking about how, like, oh, we're bringing back free speech, bringing back this or that. And then, yeah, immediately shuts down any dissent during the speech. I can understand why you would not, like, let's assume this isn't Donald Trump, a wannabe dictator, scumbag, piece of shit, traitor, and this is just any president giving a speech. Yeah, you're not going to want some random dudes in the audience yelling in the middle of your speech. Marjorie Taylor Greene did that for Biden several times. So I can get not wanting this particular, person to be screaming in the middle of your speech. That makes sense from like a logistical standpoint, but it is deeply symbolically ironic how there's just this immediate shutdown of any dissenting speech, and he's rambling about how, oh, we care about free speech, this or that. They never cared about free speech. Nobody really cares about free speech. They care about their speech, the speech of the people they like, and any speech that's inconvenient, they'll find reasons why it doesn't qualify. It's always been that way, and frankly, it likely always will be this way. I just don't like people who are pretending otherwise. And yeah, anybody who is Republican who claims to be in favor of free speech is pretending otherwise or lying on purpose. You guys are not the party of free speech. You were never the party of free speech. And this is just one of those very telling examples, because then, yeah, all over right-wing social media, they're complaining about how this guy dared to speak to the president this way during his speech. And then they'll cheer on Marjorie Taylor Greene, fucking doing all this same weird shit for all of Biden's speeches. And so it's like, taking it into context, as far as I'm concerned, this is a Weimar Germany situation. Donald Trump would become Hitler the moment it was convenient for him to do so. It's just not fully there yet. So if somebody were to ask, oh, do you think that it would be in the right for you to protest a Hitler speech at the Reichstag in like 1930? Everybody would say yes. Everyone would say yes. This is no different from that. And once again, he continues to make us look weak and stupid on the international stage. He's like ranting and raving more about his typical immigrant stuff, typical China stuff. Don't you get bored of this? Don't you, like, as a person who is a right-wing pundit or political person, are you not bored of constantly talking about this? Do you really have nothing else to say, that it's the same 10 talking points on repeat? It's one of those situations to where, yeah, while his speech was absolutely horrendous and easily one of his worst, what actually makes it unique or distinct from any of his others? It's just more of the same. I feel like you could get some AI to sift through all of Donald Trump's different speeches and to formulate a new speech that just uses passages from previous ones, and you would get this. There's nothing new. He makes references to political events or like drama, like weird beef from years ago that are so not even remotely relevant anymore. So yeah, this happened. As far as I'm concerned, Al Green is one of the only Democrats with a fucking backbone. Have some courage. Do you really want to be known as one of the political figures who, during the come up to a complete fascist dissolvement and the next Nazi Germany in the United States, to be one of the people who is known as, like, complacent, who did nothing? Like, we may be dead and gone, the United States may fall, but people will still remember how we performed this day. They will still remember how we responded to these events. How they remember it, the biases involved, yeah, that may skew the situation. But I don't feel like anybody is going to feel particularly satisfied knowing that the people who claim to be fighting fascism in the United States, the Democratic Party, who constantly campaigned on it, are just sitting on their ass and doing basically nothing. There's maybe 5, 6 Democrats in Congress right now who have any fucking backbone. Is this how you want to be remembered? Is this really the path that you see moving forward? Do you think because you didn't say anything, you're not going to end up in the camps with the rest of us? We'll have to see how that one turns out. Checking out some other topics. Not sure how long I'm going to do this one for. I guess it's just how long my ranting can go for. Yeah, here we are. Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene not getting kicked out after heckling President Biden. Yeah, like I said, they did this all the fucking time, and they weren't kicked out because while Joe Biden was ineffective and bad as a president, he still operated with a degree of decorum that still has like an old school professionalism to it. And it's a situation to where, again, I cannot stress enough how much I do not like Biden. As far as I'm concerned, he's in the top 5 worst presidents of all time for letting Trump escape. He might be number 3 for me. Number 1 being Woodrow Wilson, Johnson after Lincoln, and then he's straddling up there. Donald Trump is one of those to where I can't even really rank him yet because it's not over. He's unambiguously the worst for our generation, but we'll see how effective he is for long-term damage. But I very much feel Joe Biden will go down for long-term damage. And even he had the balls to let hecklers roast him in the middle of Congress and not kick them out while still advocating free speech. Pussy shit. And then, then we have Democratic establishment sitting there doing little to nothing. We have one guy sleeping, and then we have Elizabeth Warren, who she's very mid-tier. She has decent moments, but is mostly ineffective trash. Okay, this is one of those, yeah, I'm spreading misinformation online. I have no idea if this is a real quote. Some people seem to think Trump's playing chess when most of the time the staff are trying to stop him from eating the pieces. Trump aide. Again, like, I'm not going to research that. It's one of those, like, it is more entertaining for me in the ambiguity. Schrodinger's misinformation, where until I check it is true, I'm going to believe it's true. Staffers have confirmed to have said equally strange shit. I think, remember the McNuggy incident where he got ketchup on the walls of the Oval Office? Let's see. Yeah, people of Kentucky, how do you feel about the trade war with Canada in view of the boycott of 9.3 billion of your whiskey and goods? So that's one of those things that I learned kind of recently when looking into liquor or other alcoholic beverages, that Kentucky is actually known worldwide for producing some of the best hard alcohol, specifically things like bourbon. And so Kentucky bourbon is sold everywhere. It is a huge mainstay in many other countries for some of the best American alcohol. And so now all of that shit's costing 25% more. You want your fucking Maker's Mark? I think that's Kentucky bourbon. Pay 25% more for it, asshole. And then, yeah, just Canadians aren't going to buy that anymore. Apparently, that was one of the biggest countries that bought Maker's Mark specifically and other related things. You're cooked. I hope they enjoy it. Yeah, enjoy tariffs. You guys wanted this. It's going to pay for not having an income tax. Interesting who benefits from not having income tax. I wonder who would possibly gain from making these rash decisions. Really makes you think. Apparently this brief interview went partially viral. Let's see if I can get the audio going.
First of all, thank you for making the back of my head famous. But second of all, if we could do a sequel.
This is me and OBS having another one. Apparently desktop audio was off. Here we go.
First of all, thank you for making the back of my head famous. But second of all, if we could do a sequel. If you could if you could tell Donald Trump anything tonight, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe.
Based. This is the political activism we need in our day and time. Civility politics are dead. It's over. There is literally no point to try anymore. They've made it overwhelmingly clear that reciprocity, that cooperation, bipartisanship, it's done. That's over. Anybody who is calling for bipartisanship needs to be ostracized. It's ridiculous. You can cross the aisle to assist the actual represented people. So like the voters. Yeah, they may vote like a complete dumbass, but we still need to seek them out and try to get them better conditions, because you tend not to believe in dumb shit like this unless you are in very bad material conditions, very uneducated, or both. And many Republican voters are both. Not all of them. There are quite a few who are perfectly educated and perfectly well off, and it just so happens that they're the ones to benefit from those kind of people, from these kind of policies. We need to stop trying to pretend that things can go back to normal. We aren't going back in both ways. We're not going back to Trump's America. We cannot go back to Biden's America. We need to move forward to something completely new, and part of that involves calling Donald Trump a pussy who needs to grow a spine and Putin's hoe. It's just what has to happen. You just say it, you call it how it is. Oh, okay, so this is something I intend on reacting to separately. I'm not sure if I want to do this right now because it'll wreck my mood. I saw brief clips of this. I'll decide if I want to cover that one. Yeah, French senator speaks out by calling Donald Trump a traitor. Yeah, homie is a traitor. He fits every legal definition of a traitor. We need to begin operating under the assumption that he is a foreign asset and that this is a foreign takeover. The United States is officially a puppet regime to the Russian Empire. And again, I will no longer call Russia the Russian Federation. You guys are an empire who are too much of cowards to just change the name. That's the situation. So yeah, add another country to the list of people who completely lost faith in the United States on the international stage. Yeah, party of free speech. They are the party of free speech. And there he grabs it, takes it. Last I checked, it wasn't against the law to bring a piece of paper as a sitting Congress member and to have it in Congress in the United States in which you express your political opinion. I wasn't aware that that was a crime these days. You might want to update the Constitution that you pretend to follow to say that things like this are a crime now. I'd like to see you at least try. At least then you'd be honest. Let's see, what else? Yeah, China says it's ready for any type of war with the United States. Duh. China is blowing us out of the water these days. Again, I've never been a fan of China. I practice Tibetan Buddhism. I'm well aware of China's inequities, of all of their religious issues where they'll crack down on weird ways, them trying to make a puppet Tibetan regime, everything happening in Xinjiang with the Uyghur people. Like, China is not a good place. But they are far more prepared for this upcoming decade than the United States is. And they will replace us as the global hegemon whether we want to or not at this rate. Europe might stand a chance, but they just simply don't have the population power and the gross domestic product. China is going to dominate. They're going to dominate in Central Asia. They're going to dominate in Oceania. And they're going to dominate in Africa. The continents that have historically been raped by the West, who tend to have a pretty big grudge about dealing with Europe and dealing with the United States and North America. We're cooked. It's over. The age of the American empire is done. We are a declining power. For the longest time, we've been three third world countries in a trench coat, and now Donald Trump has ripped the trench coat off. This is truly the emperor's new clothes. That being no clothes, us just vibing, naked, three third world countries standing on top of each other, the way God intended. Yeah, Manitoba Premier Wab, can you... I've never pronounced his name before. Signs executive order to remove U.S. liquor. Duh. Why would you... Duh. Canada's always been very protectionist. We're just giving them an opportunity to, like, make it far more politically feasible. Canada will often have, like, these debates over, like, one politician will accuse the other politician of being too friendly with America and not liking Canada, and then they'll go back and forth and kind of be like, no, well, you like America too much. You're too cozy with American business, this or that. They've been waiting for an excuse for something like this. This is their excuse, and now they're going to run with it, and it's going to benefit them politically dramatically. And the conservatives are getting hit hard on this one. They're trying desperately to respond back to this, because the liberals now have the momentum. Yeah, lots of... Goes hard as fuck. he brings this fancy cane into... This reminds me of the time... Well, they were the other forces, but there was a time way back during abolitionist era where a congressman brought a walking stick and assaulted another congressperson on the floor of Congress. The guy doing the assaulting was a slaver, mind you, so I don't want to make that comparison. All I'm saying is if we're dissolving the dignity of the United States' decorum in politics, we need to bring back caning people in Congress. Fuck it, we ball. I'm not advocating for political violence. This is in Minecraft. This is a hypothetical. Canes are cool. This is free speech warrior. You can't take what Second Amendment right... Whatever these assholes say to grift to get away with actually calling for violence, but everybody pretending they're not. Ugh. Oh, okay, we have a governor. Pritzker. Fuck The name is familiar. I don't remember what state he's from. We're about to find out.
Last night in President Trump's speech to the nation, what we heard was lie after lie about what he says he's going to do for working families. The reality is he's raising taxes on you. Tariffs are a tax on working families.
Yeah, it's one of those, technically, logistically speaking, it's not a tax on the people. It is a tax on importers. But welcome to capitalism. Walmart, Target, Amazon, these importers that do basically most of commerce in the United States, any of these suppliers in the US, they're not going to lower their profit. Why would they do that? Their entire business model is on infinite growth, even if that means tiny percentages. So they're not going to actually change their bottom line to maintain the same price for consumers. If they're having to pay for everything 25% higher than it used to be, they're going to make you pay at minimum 25%. They're likely going to make you pay more for it simply because they can. They know that the American population is now becoming more educated on tariffs, but not educated enough to not do a bait and switch. So I bet you these Walmarts, these Targets, these Amazons, these big suppliers, grocery suppliers, they're not going to increase prices 25%. They're going to do it like 30%. And then they're going to show in their stock and board meetings, oh yeah, everything's fine. Line goes up. We had month over month increases, quarter over quarter increases on our revenue and on our profits. And it's like, no wonder, because you jacked up the prices even more than it needed to be. This happened during COVID. It's going to happen again. We are in for a great recession, and it's going to primarily affect working people, despite the policies affecting them being only tangentially related.
Raising tariffs from Canada and Mexico means that you're paying the bill. The cost of cars, the cost of your groceries, all are going to go up because of the tariffs he's imposing. He also wants to cut childcare and healthcare and retirement. Why? Because he wants to give a $4.5 trillion tax cut to the wealthiest Americans.
Exactly. It's exactly that. His entire strategy is he's trying to kind of shift American politics and economics to like the Gilded Age. Way back when, like a century plus ago, most of the United States' actual federal revenue that it brought in was on things like tariffs. The income tax wasn't a thing yet. A lot of these other weird niche taxes that we pay so much into these days just wasn't a thing. So all of these business people were able to, infinite growth their way until, eventually they got too close to the sun and some sort of regulator had to stamp down on them. And you started to see this with Teddy Roosevelt and other trust busters in the early 20th century. But we're going to end up going back to that. Yeah, we won't have an income tax. Yeah, we won't have a lot of these other bloat taxes. But we're still going to be paying the same amount. It's not going to actually benefit us in any meaningful way. Tax returns are going to be a thing of the past. You're not going to be able to rely on that anymore. Taxes will generally be easier to file, most likely. But okay, cool, you have to spend significantly more at the grocery store every day. And studies have found that you tend to pay attention a lot more to these minor little day-to-day expenses and don't really appreciate the grand total economic benefit year by year. And you tend to only notice that year by year when you're doing your taxes, and now that's all going to be fucked now. Screw TurboTax, by the way. I had to do that again. Fuck you guys. You guys suck, asshole. You need to be completely nationalized. All of your people need to be fired. Fuck TurboTax. Fuck any of these tax filing institutions. That's not a thing you do in the and any other country but the United States, ostensibly. It's terrible. And yes, he's cutting all of this shit for healthcare, for elderly care, for veterans care. It is so blatant. How can you still support this guy? It is hilarious. One of those things that you learn when studying scams. And if you've seen a couple of my other videos, I did a pretty big senior paper on scams and have continued to do a lot of independent research about how scams work. And studies have overwhelmingly found that people who have been victims of a scam or of some sort of con are far less likely to admit that they have become victims because it's embarrassing to their ego. So you're more likely to... It is far harder to escape a scam than it is to recognize that you've already been scammed. It's kind of like a sunk cost fallacy situation. So I'm willing to bet you that like the overwhelming majority of MAGA supporters are kind of like, I don't know about this one, but like they can't say that to their friends and family because it's a cult. And wouldn't you know, I also spend a lot of time researching cults, and control over friends and family and ostracization is one of the top ways that cults control you and prevent you from leaving. So when you combo in that shame and that guilt of falling for a scam, plus the fact that there's a chance that you're going to be ostracized from your entire community, a lot of these Trump supporters are just not willing to publicly admit that they got duped time after time again, and they've been duped for almost a decade at this point. It's a cowardice and an unwillingness to admit this stuff. It's weakness. It is fundamentally a weakness issue. Skill issue.
Look, we're working hard to stop him from doing it, but everybody's got to speak up, stand up, show up, because otherwise we're going to feel the brunt of what Republicans, particularly congressional Republicans, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk are intending to do to you.
Yeah, I mean, solid statement. Obviously, there could be far more to discuss, like what specifically is going to be done, because a lot of Democrats will make a lot of statements about this stuff, but they have no plan. They have no plan. Nothing. It's just vaguely bloviate about how it's bad, it's going to get worse. It's bad, it's going to get worse. We're going to fix it, but we're not going to say how. It's bad, it's going to get worse. Vote for us. Again. Despite no good changes. Again. It's this never-ending cycle of Republicans make it worse. Democrats balance things out. You know, they stall the bleeding, but they don't fundamentally fix the issue. And so I'll be curious to see going into the future how governors and state elections have a role on the future of politics, because I don't think the United States is lasting much longer. I expect in the near future, different states are going to have to work together to form literal like coalition blocks and be prepared to raise state National Guard in order to be able to, you know, actually fight against the federal government when the time comes. One of those things that people don't really understand about the Second Amendment is overwhelmingly it was understood not to mean that individuals had the right to bear arms. It was meant to say that the states had the right to bear arms in a militia to combat the federal government. We're about to have a real constitutional crisis. It is every single day. It continues to get worse. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know your local representatives. Get to know your local government, because I expect you're going to have to deal a lot more with them soon than with the feds. It's pretty close to where we're getting to where we're going to have to start drawing lines in the sand. I hate to be alarmist, but I've been this alarmist for the last 5-ish years now, and it's just gets worse every single day. It is constantly worse. Yeah, I guess that's that for this one today. I could probably rant for hours, but the general principle has been that shit's bad. I'll continue to make additional videos, but this has been another day in paradise.